It's pretty interesting because there's that whole cold turkey quitting your job. That takes a lot
Yeah.
of courage. What was going through your mind when you were making that decision?
I was a mess, to say the least. I had a commute that was 45 minutes each way, and they were adamant that I work from 8 and I leave at 5. And it didn't matter if I was there at 7 or 3:30, and that would have changed my lifestyle drastically to be able to live better and more balanced. And that was the first straw. Just having that control didn't really make sense because it didn't matter when I worked for the work that I was doing. I was an analyst. But emotionally, I was full of doubt. It was a great paying job. I was in healthcare doing finance. It had all the career trajectory in the world, but I was very unhappy. I have a great mom who hasn't always been the person that's supporting me, and I knew I had her bank or checkbook, but she said, "What's the worst that can happen? You're always going to have a roof over your head. You're always going to be fed. So let's just see what else you can bring into your life." And I listened to her for the first time in probably 8 years. I was 23 years old. That was the pivotal person that kind of pushed me over the edge.
That's such great advice. Basically, what is the worst that could happen? And if you sit down and you can think of some pretty bad things, then of course you
Yeah.
changed your mind, but that's good advice.